Hello, my name is Girlies, or Caffeine Misery, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite decks of all time that got some brand new support out of DZ-BT-13. That being the Dualmajestar Astroea Bico Stella. Astroea is a deck that's been around since back in the Wilderness era, that should be BT9, which was focused around getting crits to soul and then binding them when they're soul busted to build up for different abilities and scaling. And it was also one of the first mask decks, so she would scale off how many crits were in bind. However, back in DZ-BT-7, she got this brand new form that could also bind Astroeas when they're soul blasted. And as of DZ-BT-13, with a brand new rear guard, we've completely changed up the way this is playing. We were still on masks originally. This has a brand new playstyle now, but without further ado, let's get into it. Of course, we're on the Dualmajestar 0 and the Grade 1 Short Sparta, who, when ordered upon by Dualmajestar Dyna, you soul charge 2, and as long as one of the cards soul charged was a critical, you'll draw a card. And with that on Vanguard Circle, as long as the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can bind a trigger from Soul and give her 10k to make her an 18k booster or rarely beater. Our grade 2 Dualmajestar Dyna has the rearguard skill that when, and as long as you have a Dualmajestar Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 to put 2 triggers from drop to soul and give her 5k. That'll never come up. What will come up is that when she's rode upon by an Astroea, you call her in Short Sparta. And of course, we've got our grade 3, the Dualmajestar Astroea Bico Stella, who, at the beginning of your main phase, as long as you didn't ride this turn, you can discard a card from hand, pick a card with the same name as her from the bind zone, ride at a stand, and if you rode a card, you activate Persona Ride. So you, as long as you have a copy of her in the bind zone, you are never missing your Persona Rides. Other than that, when she attacks a Vanguard for Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 3, you bind all criticals and Astroeas that were Soul Blast for the cost, and you perform the following based on the number of both in your bind zone. At 1 or more, she'll retire opponent's rearguard and give the front row 5. At 3 or more, she'll get an extra crit and extra drive, and at 5 or more, she'll get to restand a rearguard. Moving into our main deck grade 3s, of course, we have 3 copies of our Persona Ride. We're also on 2 copies of our Astrology Chimera, who, when placed on rear, as long as you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Astroea in the card name, you put a card from hand to soul, draw 1, and he'll get 5k. Other than that, on rear and Guardian Circle, as long as your bind zone has 1 or more criticals or Astroeas, it'll get plus 10k guard, and if you have 3 or more, it'll also be an interceptor. This is really important for the late game for rebuilding your soul. Along with that, I mentioned that we aren't on the mask package anymore. However, we are still on 4 copies of Dualmajestar Astroea Bico masks. None of this text matters. All that matters is that she has Astroea in her card name. And of course, she's cost to go into soul for our Astrology or another her card that we'll get into later. The main thing is she's a name that will be able to get into the bind zone. Rounding our grade 3 cards, though, we've got 2 copies of Dualmajestar Celesphere, which, as long as you have an Astroea Vanguard, or you can play it. It countercharges 1, takes 3 trigger units from drop and push them into soul. The rest of the text here as if your card with Astroea's card name was removed this turn, you give your Vanguard plus 1 crit. That doesn't matter because we will not be removing Astroeas. Going into our grade 2 lineup, we're of course on 3 copies of Griffith Chimera, who, when placed on Vanguard Circle, as long as you have an Dualmajestar Vanguard, you ditch a card in hand, check the top 2, put 1 into hand, and either leave the other on top or put it to soul, and then he'll gain 5k for the turn. So this is going to be your kind of scrying for the deck. This is going to set up these triple drive turns because you're always going to be able to hit 3 in bind going first. And depending on your board state, you'll probably hit 5 going second. And we'll get into why shortly. Moving on with our grade 2s, though, we've got 4 copies of Sternberg Chimera, who, when placed on rare, as long as you have an Dualmajestar Vanguard, you get to choose a card from drop and put it into Soul. As long as your Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, and it put a trigger into Soul, it gets +5, so it'll be a 15k beater the turn it's placed. And when he stands by the effect of your Vanguard with Astroea's card name, as long as the bind zone has 4 more criticals, it gets an extra crit till end of turn. That effect doesn't matter that much, honestly. And the reason why is our brand new unit, the Mage of Self-Virtue Zilradius. We're on 4 copies. This card is insane. As long as you have a Vanguard with Dualmajestar in its card name, it gets all of the following effects. Once in the drop zone, as long as you have a grade 3 Vanguard, the following cost can be paid with Bind or Rearguard instead. But as long as you don't have a copy of him for counterblast 1 or that alternate cost, you get to call him Rearguard Circle, so you can call an Astroea, bind it to get him out. Along with that, when he attacks, he gets +5k until the end of the battle. If the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, he'll get +15 instead. And if he was stood by the Vanguard's ability this turn, it'll get a critical until end of battle. That is not once per turn, so it'll be a 25k beater that if it's restood by Bico Stella, it'll have an extra crit. Rounding out our 2s, we are on Protection Twincast as our Girlies piece. Going into our grade 1s, we're on 4 copies of Critical Star Demonic Lady Bifrons, who, on plays for a counterblast, lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. 1 goes to hand, 1 goes to soul, and 1 is discarded. Along with that, as a once per turn act, for 1 soul and 3 energy, you search your deck for either an Astroea or a critical trigger, put a soul, then you get to take a card from drop with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it. So this is going to be your main resource engine to, 1, get Astroeas ripped out of deck so you have more triggers you can hit, and it'll let you loop the Gryph of Chimera so you can keep scrying as much as you want. Continuing on with the grade 1s, we are also main decking 2 copies of Schwarzbarda. Rounding out the actual grade 1 units, we're on Purple Jeweled Beast Amethyst, who, when placed on Rare Guardian, by putting back 2 cards that were originally in the right deck to the right deck face up, he'll either countercharge on Rearguard Circle or become a 20k guard. And lastly, we got Steam Main Arlem as our Sentinels. Moving into our trigger lineup, we are on 8 critical triggers. Them being soul crits is important, because very rarely you'll need to get into soul that way. It's very rare, but it can come up. We're also on 3 of the shield fronts. Reason we're doing shield fronts is you have more than enough ways to get cards into soul, and this deck could definitely use the extra defense. 4 heal triggers. And for our OT, we're doing the Spiritual King of Ignition, Walnut, which, when it's drove check, you choose one of your standing rearguards and give it, at the end of the battle it attacked, stand that unit, and if you don't choose a card, you draw one, choose a card, choose up to 1 unit in hand and call it. You could also do Eidos Pharaoh. I've been using Eidos Pharaoh until recently, and the reason I've made the switch is Zilradius. Let's go into some of the pros and cons of the deck now. One of the biggest pros, especially of this new build, is you can actually hit this condition finally, very easily. The 5, you won't be able to do it going first because Zilradius can only do that bind alternate cost once per turn, but you can guarantee it going second. You don't need to rely on seeing the second Schwarzbarda. Along with that, you can't get rid of him. You always have a free intercept you can bring back, if not 2, because you have Bifrons. Along with that, you're able to kind of manipulate your top decks with Griffith, so that helps. You're always hitting triple drive, so your hand is never really losing value, and you're never missing a Persona Ride because of Bico Stella's auto. On that, because Zilradius gets +15, that's a 40k beater after the restand, not including any other triggers, and if you leave a booster standing behind him, because that'd be 10 from Persona, 15 from Zone skill, and 5 from Astroea's skill. On that, the reason I'm on the masks specifically as additional Astroeas to use as cost is to make my opponent think I'm on the mass package. If they think I'm bricking and have to be on, and not happy to be on Bico Stella, they are more likely to make mistakes, let it go to their head. It's a little bit of psychological warfare, admittedly. And some of the additional changes you could do with this deck is you could talk about a Sternberg for like Valak or the 4th Griffith. Zilridius is insane at 4. You need to be seeing him. There's just a lot of flexibility you can do. You could still be on masks if you really wanted to be. You could swap around what decks you're on, what engines you're on. You could definitely run a bigger order package with like Orions and stuff. This deck has a lot of stuffing too, but the biggest issue with it is the guard value. This is a lot of grade 3s. We've got up here. We're on 11 main deck grade 3s, and 2 of them get guard value after you're on a grade 3 turn. So if you brick on a bunch of these grade 3s, you are really at risk of taking a lot more damage than you can handle early. On with that, while you don't need to worry that badly about countercharge because you have Celestia and Amethyst, it is still a worry since she uses 1 every turn. And while you can rebuild your board from just getting retired, if you see something that inexplicably binds it, if it locks it and you're locked out of your board a unit for a turn, CBD is coming out soon, as we know, so that's going to be a big problem for this deck. Anything that can hit, that can reduce the number of attacks, because this deck is only a 4 attack deck, it can be detrimental. And lastly, anything that targets Bifrons could spell the end of the deck, because looping through Griffith Chimera, building up your hand size through that neutral, not really building up, but like going neutral on your hand size and guaranteeing triggers, is this deck's main kill. Kill potential. Being able to deck thin really fast with the Bifrons and the Stella and looping with Griffith. If you end up losing your way to deck thin, you are really at risk of just losing the game really fast. But this is just my list for one of my top 5 decks of the Dress era. If you guys like the video, you like listening to me yap, you like my decks, do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Ciao.